Coming up on 14 minutes now past the hour, you know, whether you're paying off those credit cards or consolidating mortgage loans, refinancing debt can often be a good strategy, but there are some pitfalls to tell you about. And joining us this morning is Bob Ingram from Ameriprise Financial with the 7 things you need to know when deciding to refinance. Now, this is a big decision for a lot of people, but, you know, interest rates are historically low, but you say there are actually more things to consider when you're looking at the refinancing decision than just getting that low interest rate, right?
Right. Now, you're right as far as the total cost of borrowing is really what you want to reduce. You're trying to take one amount of debt and have the cost or, you know, the overall money out of pocket go down.
Right.
So when you're talking about, let's say, a standard mortgage refinance and you might have a 6.5%, 6% rate, and now you're trying to lock into something like a 5% rate. Well, to do that, you may have things like closing costs, fees. You might have to pay points, you know, percentage of the total amount that you're borrowing. So even for the same amount that you currently have to borrow, you have to have an out-of-pocket cost up front. So you have to make that up with a lower rate, causing the lower payment, and that takes some time. So you want to look at what the break-even point is for that, and usually, rule of thumb, you got to be probably beating it by about a percentage point
for it to be worthwhile.
Now, when you're also doing that, some people want to, of course, try to reduce as much debt as possible. Great idea, good intention, and you might get a smaller term of the mortgage, maybe taking it from a 30-year to a 15-year.
Right.
The problem of doing that, or the issues with some people, is that if you're really tight with the budget and cash flow, and you lock into that lower term, your payment could be the same. Sometimes it's lower. Sometimes, though, it can be higher. And then if you run into a little bit of a pinch, now you don't have that flexibility. Whereas if you had the higher term, you could always add on and pay extra to the mortgage, but if things get into a pinch, you know, you're not tied into that. So make sure your mortgage company maybe allows you to restructure it if you get into a little bit of a crunch, going from 15 to 30, let's say. Now, if you're using it to pay off debt, you know, you're taking out a home equity loan or refinancing for some of that cash, also be aware of stretching out that consumer debt. So let's say you're paying off 5,000 credit cards, but you put it onto a home equity loan that could go for years. It's a lower rate, but you end up paying a lot of out-of-pocket costs there. So get that time frame down.
And we should cut up those credit cards?
Yes. You know, you cannot do that again. You cannot get back into that. If you've gotten the one get-out-of-jail-free card by refinancing, you've got to not go back into debt.
Now, I want to ask you what decline of home values. You know, many people can't use their home equity to pay off debt. You know, should you borrow from your retirement account?
Tough question. For the most part, Alicia, I would say really last resort. You really should avoid that for a couple reasons. Sure, it's a lower rate typically, and you're borrowing from yourself. You're paying yourself. But when you take that money out, you're paying yourself back with after-tax dollars. But you have to actually take, you know, your pre-tax dollars are in there growing. You also have the opportunity cost. Money is not growing for you. And what does that do to your retirement? You know, what is the impact going to be if you take that money out and you maybe can't replace it quickly? So there's a lot of things to think about there.
Really, a lot to think about. Bob Ingram from Ameriprise Financial, thank you. You always help us out so much. We appreciate it. Dave?